my Energy Ecliptic. Love's circle persona. Self-love, best love, world love. You know it's my honor. Greetings. I be your host, JaMes Peter Bastien. In peace, prosperity, power. It is my honor to share my affirmations, visualizations, and unisons, manifestations, and all satisfactions. The mind, body, and soul is to grow in all facets. Presented in procreation, this is MB19 podcast show. May you be at peace in whatever the action is proclaiming. Ascending the greatest of all satisfaction like your goals a bullseye. Your action the dart. Believe in you no matter the ending or the start. For your life, such precious life, must you claim it. Empty stomach, fueled by purpose. My belly full, but me hungry. Empty stomach, fueled by purpose. Food that can fuel the digestion of growth. This sort of emptiness that is stomach is the idealization of nutrition, any sort of fooding that needs to be chewed, swallowed, not being able to fully provide what would be called craving. That fuel only being able to be aided by perpetuity, by the action that you can comply. Empty stomach, fueled by purpose. But the statement of my belly full, but me hungry, this accentuates that although my belly has the amount of nutrient source of food needing from the idealization that starvation is not presented, but hungry for a purpose, for a reason to live is what that statement would comply in, right? So where you have a side where empty stomach with no food, with no minerals or source of nutrients, right, to keep that hunger or starvation away, but yet that empty stomach is fueled because the purpose of his days, moments, has reasoning, has perpetuity behind it. So with digestion, it's not just of the dieting of the food that we eat, right? That we eat, swallow, chew, then that we digest, that comes out of waste out of our body. That's not the only consumption of food, right? People, places, and things are another consumption processing of food, right? So how bad do you want something doesn't necessarily mean that you're full, right? That you're full by the design of having a lot of, but having not too much may fuel you to get more of whatever you have, right? And just as you may have a lot and vice versa, but lack the desire, lack the ambition to gain more of such because you're already fueled by it. So where dieting comes the idealization of decentralizing your eating habits in the sense of Are you overeating, undereating? Is it a kept balanced perspective of your intake and outtake in regards to your body? Not just with food, but again with people, places, and things. I look into the reasoning for my days as they come and go. Is that I do my best to serve myself a balanced plate, a purpose plate. A plate that has commitment, dedication, with a side of joy. You know what I mean? With a side of satisfaction, but yet also may I eat education? May I eat learning? What I mean by that is that just because you know something doesn't mean that you know everything of that something. Like doesn't mean that you know every way of that something, right? Things alternate. So it is best to keep yourself in the compliance that what's known today can be altered tomorrow. So in that same process, I look into my daily basis of being fueled by the moments, right? Um, as human beings, you can't never be too high, you can't get too low. It's that medium balance of, again, being humble that the worst of worst human being having to suffer the circumstances could be you. And also you can be inspired that anybody living the best, richest, lavish life can also be you as well, right? So it's that mediance, it's that balance to know that you are your mind, you are your thoughts, and also you're not to give in to so much of your mind and so much of your thoughts, right? You take the accountability of your thought process, but also you relinquish some of those thought process to understand that I'm just a human thinking outlandish thoughts, right? So some of us, for example, with our gifts and our ability, we love the threshold of saying that this is all me, this is this, that, and the third, but we refuse to give the higher powers of life that capability. So it's the same process with your success. It takes a village, you know what I'm saying, by people, places, and things that was designed in this inevitable time to make this a successful time for you. Nobody just gets up and tell the world how they want it. Everything is already written. Everything is maturated through a segment of lines of cause and effect that's predicating the past and the future that galvanizes us to what it states to be the present, the current moment of now. So the whole statement for me implementing that title of empty stomach fueled by purpose and belly full but me hungry is to keep that medians and as you'll be listening to my cast, if you are someone who's a regular listener or so, you'll understand that for a lot of my education, it goes into the gray idealization of educating. Because to me, with the gray, can you give the perspective of the white side, the black side, right? The power of life is within a duality, seeing the both side, right? The way you get to a solution is being able to solidify the matters of whatever the circumstances may be to get into that solution. So in a lot of my conversation, some people may dislike it because I'm a thorough student of life and an educator of life. So what I mean is that if you are a student and also if you're an educator, you'll learn that there's multiple ways, as the saying goes, to skin a cat. And being that there's multiple ways to skin a cat, you can't tell somebody mirroring to mirror one particular way of you skinning a cat to be the only way of doing something. And I think for most people in the egotistical society that we live in, that is the most prideful way. And I think for those that's followers looking for leaders, they want a black and white definitive yes or no for most things, right? If given the gray area, the grade is the knowledge, and the grade is providing you knowledge, but the wisdom is you implementing the different knowledges of information you obtain. The wisdom is you implementing the actions amongst what works for you, right? But for most people, knowledge is what is knowledge is knowledge is reading something, hearing something, and doing what was said amongst what they read it or heard, right? It's not something that goes for most people to be internally significant to what their meaning of this or that confined to, rather than what society said it to be or do, right? And yeah, so again, what my attention, what me going and tear up amongst that, I think for me is very important that I give the idealization of whatever circumstances may be, whether it's one viewpoint or multiple viewpoint, however that goes, right? Triangular viewpoint. It is important for me to confine that to anyone to understand that there's 7 ways to do this. Here's the 7 ways, or here's the 4 ways that I may know out of the 7, right? I think education is the process of enhancing someone's mind, not to your standard of viewing, but to the world views of capabilities by a particular subject or comprehension. You know, so with me, that's my ultimate view in life, is to not be controlled by others. So as an educator, as a spiritual being, that even within my own knowledge that I galvanize through wordplay, through literature of me writing, I understand I'm a part of it. I understand that I am a part of information, that things do come into my spirit, come into my life based on a written law of what was meant to occur, right? I don't look into chance. I don't look into wishes, hope, as to be false prophet, false prophesize, false prophesize. You can say circumstances that just end up happening without nothing happening. I don't look at it like that, right? It's all about having that accountability amongst, like I was telling you again, you have to have humility amongst this world to know that things can be a lot worse, but also you have to have a godly potency amongst your ability to command a life, to command the life that you view, right? So in both ways, and I think that's where the confusion for most people, where they don't, where for example, they would see someone comparing themselves to a god, or that they're a god, that this person is evil, atheist, however they may label that term, right? Because for most people, that's too much of a title shift for you to give yourself, or for you to take on to yourself, right? But to whom given, what is the statement? Much is required. So even if that was to be that person's standpoint, they have to hold the accountability of not being in a weak state of mind, right? So for most people, they're going to subjectively judge that person who say that they're a god, or that they are gods, right? That who you think you are, right? From that viewership. Vice versa, you may have those who look into the idealization of placing themselves under a deity, some sort of religion, right? And then you may have another group that's like, why are you giving your powers up? Why don't you think you're the wish or hopes or the prayers to your ancestors? Why don't you think you're the one to that, right? So in both essence of my example is that as much as that as much as that both sides can have their own truths of divinity to what that means to them, I wholeheartedly understand that it's about balance, because no matter how religious you are, amongst, if you're a believer, you're a prayer amongst a higher power, right? Whatever sort of religion that be, if you are into your prayers, if you are into, asking for permission or certain things of that nature, right? That's certainly accessible. But what ends up happening also is that after your prayer, must you act upon such, must you place yourself into the step that aligns you closer to you actually being done, getting those things done, right? So you still got to act upon your prayers. Where for most people, they believe, okay, I just pray and God will give me to whatever, right? Vice versa. If you say that you are a God, now you have to take you got to take the belief in the prayer into your own hands and say that my words are bonds, right? If you say that you're a God, then you have to take the accountability. You got to take the ownership to your own livelihood, because you don't have someone religiously having that over you. So as both, even as that person that serves a religion purpose, right? They may have more of a potency among somebody else having some sort of control over them. But however, for them, they found peace with that. They found peace that they're in a group, they're in a social setting, right? And like I said, vice versa, with that person that believes that they're a God and so on and so forth, they still got to have that humility amongst that you're not the only one. Like, you still got to have that approach to understand that me thinking that I'm God, that I can do everything that I want, anything or everything that I want, is going to come with some cause and effect, right? You think that you're God, you can kill somebody. Okay, well, it's either laws of jurisdiction of the state or the country that you live in that you have to abide by. You may have to abide by another person who may feel that they're a God, or who may feel that they're gods that want to murder you for murdering someone. So there's always going to be that pros and cons amongst those spectrum. So realistically, like I was just stating, it's all for that mutuality of balance. You keep running around campaigning like you a badass. You gonna vote. You gonna be voted in like you gonna find out who really a badass. You're not the only one. So really, at least, well, to be transparent, at least for me, that's what I've learned in my lifetime. And to keep the conversation going, I would say, if you hear from a lot of my perspective too, that balance is power for me, because being my own parent, being my own, I guess, uh, life advisor, you know what I'm saying? Like, being my own parent and that child at that same time was that balance I had key for me. So I was 13, 14, looking to the future aspect of, like, who am I hanging around? Like, what sort of friends I have? Like, what school I want to go to, depending on, who I know in this area that's good or bad. Like, I've I've always, since early stage, had to look into situations like that. Like I said, but that's more of my personal situation growing up, where I didn't have that all the background, right? And there's some people that didn't have it too, right? So for some people, they'll look at it like, all right, fuck it. My mom said I was gonna be dead in the jail, I was gonna be locked up, shit like that. So I'll do whatever is necessary to make her be right. So when she told me that, my mom told me that, biologically, my mother told me that, that was something I'm like, I don't know who you talking to. That's not my aura. That's not my energy. You know what I'm saying? So for me, I was already driven from an early stage, because it's not something that nobody could label me as or title me as. You know what I'm saying? I experienced hate before I knew love. So for me, what I understood was that, like, a lot of the stuff I was experiencing early was not the the feeling or the energy that maturated mutually through my spirit amongst, like, if it felt right or not. So a lot of ways, the way I learned in life was from wrong, you know what I'm saying? From wrong not feeling right to me, and me understand that because this don't feel right, nah, I got this internally, without experiencing that right, I internally got an experience out of it to be right, because I got the I got the externally, physically by flesh. I got the experience by wrong. You know what I'm saying? So if you can feel a wrong emotion, you just gotta horn yourself and harness yourself. Should I say? I say horn. You gotta harness yourself intuitively, and you'll find what anything opposite to how you feel, whether it's a good feeling or bad feeling, can mirror you the vision of that opposition of good or bad. That's what I'm trying to say. Whew, Lord, that was tough. Nah, but overall, yeah, like I said, so for me, because I'm raised different than most, my perspective and my outlook is a little different. You know what I mean? So, like I said, her negativity based on my biological mother wordplay or statement to me was more like, I'll prove you wrong. I'll prove myself right. You know what I'm saying? It's not about what you're saying. It's about what I say. So that's kind of like, in a lot of ways, the way I looked at myself, and the way I looked into um, what's right and what's wrong for me. You know what I'm saying? It's all people, places, and things circumstantial for my viewership to understand. You know what I'm saying? Rather than someone controlling, like the weather. You know what I'm saying? Like certain aspect of your days are like the weather. And what I mean by that is that the weather has an ability to fully affect us in our livelihood, meaning from where you can't even go outside no more, right? Right? You have that ability to where weather can affect you to that perspective. Go outside, connect with other people, obviously with our society, make money, go to work financially, right? There's a lot of ways weather can deter our days, right? So that's like the humble aspect what I'm saying with that balance, right? But however, with weather, we can also adjust and make alterations. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's a super hot day, we try to keep ourselves cool as possible. Where least as of warm clothing, keep your, you know what I'm saying? Keep yourself. You already say cool as possible. Anyway, now let's go to another example. If it's like a rainy day, you know what I'm saying? You know, you either umbrella. You know, you want to keep yourself around coverings, whether it's building, whether you're in a car, right? So, although there's ways that rain can limit everybody days, hot can limit everybody days, cold can limit everybody days, so on and so forth, or stop the days, right? We also, as humans, place ourselves enough to a point where we alterate with weather, right? As we're humans, we have the ability to outthink animals to where if certain outcome of the weather is happening to animals, they don't have no other alteration, right? Most animals are not going out with the thunder and rain, one, of the weather, but also two, because they understand the discernment of their surroundings that could bring danger, right? But what I mean by that, with animals, naturally, they already have to cultivate to the option that they have, where we as humans, we can make a certain amount of alteration. We can alterate it fully, or we can be limited to our alteration, depending how effective or how powerful that weather is to control or not being able to control. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I mean by that, having that humility, but also but us having that godliness sense of like we can make changes, right? And that's where, for most of my saying and doings and being comes, is because I have a quaint perspective of like life, starting from the beginning of my life, to understand that like nobody's gonna treat you special. Nobody's gonna convey you to be special. It doesn't take a mother to do that. It doesn't take a father to do that. Naturally, that's what most people experience. But again, for me, not experiencing that, it still didn't take away my spiritual power. And God blessed me, the universe, the life, the way, however you want to depict life, the creator of life, right? As the universe. I was blessed with a spirit that was heavenly potent amongst having a perspective of thinking, not just for myself, but my surrounding. Having a perspective of not only just looking outside of my surrounding, but inside within my own surrounding of like, this is not just happening or cultivating just to me in this certain manner. Being able to understand how I had a circumstance early as a child, but then I could look through another child, whether, you know, just make an example, whether I have a certain health issue and I look into somebody else at my age with a certain health issue, maybe they can't walk, they can't see, maybe they can't talk. There's so many of those variations. What it did for me at an early age, it took away that natural degrade that I had for myself in the sense of being feeling like being alienated to myself amongst like, where's my mom, where's my father. Those sort of statement and thoughts were able to go away from me because I looked into the situation of saying like, you're not the only one that go through certain hardship, right? You may have not have I may have not had the proper upraising of a mother and father, right? But I did have some blessings with my grandmother and so on, a couple aunties, where some person may have born, they may have been born and never met their mother and father. God forbid, and never met anybody biological that's connected with their family. You know what I'm saying? So even or then that person may be raised with their family, but their family treat them like ish. You know what I'm saying? So I've always understood duality and the diversity of what the world is amongst that. Because again, in those same example, like I'm telling you, the riches of the rich kid may have two parents where everybody think in the world that he's spoiled. They don't give him crap. They don't give that kid shit. He or she, they don't give him nothing. And maybe that kid, you know what I'm saying, can eat or they get everything they want, but they don't get their attention. They don't get their mother or father time. They don't get affection. They don't get morals and principles, right? Maybe there's a kid that their mom and dad don't have all the finest in the world, but they get hella love. There's so many diversion of how we can be raised in this society. And the biggest spectrum of this conversation, it goes into balancing that out, right? Because you don't want to be a parent that's not capable to spoiling your kids with those unconditional things that we want to spoil them with, which would I would first say, spoil them with love, spoil them with that perspective that right or wrong that you got their back in the manner of learning, earning, giving back to that child, right? So there's many ways you can spoil, but also you don't want to spoil with materialism that's gonna most of the time raise that child to look into people for materialistic things or to value people by those perspectives, right? So it all takes keen to that balance. Okay, I want to give my child the world, but I want to give my child enough respect, not only for themselves but their surrounding. That sort of balance, those sort of balance takes into it plays into every other situation that young child, whether he becomes a man or a woman in that future, right? They're going to have to look into the way they treat themselves. They're going to have to look into the way their surrounding treat them. And that all starts with us as parents amongst what we're giving these child to look into amongst morals and principle, amongst their perpetuity, amongst understanding the difference of whereabouts and careabouts, right? Understanding what impact is, what effects is, what causes brings. You know what I'm saying? Having accountability, taking ownership for their words, their actions, their thoughts, right? Letting somebody understand that, hey, you can make the change that you want to make any given day. Let them also understand that, hey, it's not the end of the world if you mess up today. It's not the end of the world if you don't get the solution or a clarity that you wanted today is still possible for tomorrow. It's that balance. It's the king balance to make the world better. It's us demoralizing the ability that self-hate has in our life, limiting the distraction that we place in our life, right? And also really being acceptable for our days and hours, right? Because it's not about chasing the money, right? Because if you're a money chasing person, if it's being trained for you, that shouldn't be no problem in this world. And if you're a person you want to live with nature and a minimum amount from based on what your needs to pay your bill, that shouldn't be no problem for you in this world as well. It's key for us to respect each other with balance amongst our livelihood. Nobody should tell you the life that you're living besides the life that you want and that's within you to live out, right? So again, I'm grateful as thankful for your time and appreciation of this moment. And again, this has been another episode of MB19 Podcast Show. Much love, look into that mirror for that goddess that you are, that you aiming to be. Remember, the best thing you are through perfection is imperfection. That's your only perfection is your imperfection. So you might as well heed with that, you know what I'm saying? Hug that imperfection because you hugging yourself, you know what I'm saying? And also, it's the same perspective with having judgment of others, whether you have a judgment of someone being better than you or someone being less than you. Whether you feel they better than you, just remember that's you in a higher stage that you physically haven't gotten to. If you feel like you better than them, remember that's you in the lower stage that you probably was before or you may have not experienced but you can get to. Respect yourself. Respect our world. Self-love, best love. That's the only way we can get the world love. Affirm, visualize, manifest. Truly, daily, by the seconds of the minutes, can we stay truly blessed. Peace, prosperity, power. Peace, prosperity, power. That's for every second to every minute of every hour. Much love, JaMes Peter Bastien. I'm out this bitch, yo.